All right, well, we will go ahead and get started with today's session. I'm a little late here. Number one, Gary Gow and I go way back, and we were chatting and catching up with things. And number two, Jen texted me early this morning. She had to take one of her children to urgent care. Thought he had strep throat, but ended up being a virus. So she's taking care of him right now. So you get me today. I'm Pam Bennett, State Master Gardener Volunteer Program Director, and I am going to be moderating this session on Tree Fruit 101 with Dr. Gary Gow. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Remember the recordings, handouts, everything that we have available for the session and past sessions is on go.osu.edu/mgvlearn. And this is worth 1 hour of continuing education. Our next horticulture webinar will be Thursday. We'll have happy hour from November 2 from 4 to 5 p.m. with the science behind changing colors, fall foliage. So that ought to be an interesting one. You can register for that at the same link I just mentioned. Again, we will be using the Q&A box, and we will not ask questions until we get to the end of the presentation. Although if there's a question needed for clarity, I'll be monitoring that and interrupt Dr. Gow, but otherwise we'll let Gary go until the end of the session. And then again, if I don't forget, because I'm not used to this, I'm a little rusty, I'll put the poll out at the very end, and we appreciate your responses. So as I mentioned, Gary and I go way back. We've been on the Buckeye Environmental Horticulture team for many years. Gary has done quite a bit of extension programming on high-value fruit crops at the South Centers, which is in Piketon, Ohio. He works right now with aronia, blackberries, currants, elderberries, gooseberries, grapes, and raspberries. Gary has taught many a Master Gardener volunteer training session on tree fruits and small fruits. And he is right now working on fall fruit research updates, fruit printing workshops, and a fruit production series. So with that, I will stop sharing and let Gary share. And everybody welcome Gary Gow.
Hey, thanks a lot, Pam, and thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Get my presentation up. Okay, here we go. Yeah, all good to go. Here we go. Well, thanks a lot, Pam. And gosh, Pam and I we go back a few years, and I was a horticulture extension educator in Claremont County for from '94 to about 2006, and then from 2006 to 2011, I was a horticulture extension educator in Delaware County. And so in 2011, on April 1st, and I always say April Fool's Day, and then I decided to join OSU South Centers in Piketon, and so fortunately things have worked out pretty well, and so I have been there ever since. So as Pam mentioned, I did quite a few of these training programs, and it's Master Gardener volunteers are always near and dear in my heart, and just love doing this. So when I was asked to teach this Tree Fruit 101, and I was thinking, well, our Master Gardeners already went through fruit training, whether it's tree fruits, small fruits, and various types of fruits. So for some, this will be more like a refresher, and for others, and maybe the first time, and hopefully I'll present something, whether that would be new or useful. But it's always good to kind of catch things, and if you miss something or learn something, that would be fantastic. So appreciate you all being here on the beautiful autumn day. And I can see I live in Central Ohio, so I can see outside of my window. It's a beautiful day, and quite mild and sunny and all that. And so, no, anyway, so I'll go ahead and get started. And uh, not sure exactly when I started getting very wordy. Always joke with people that I'm a very wordy person. And I remember back in the 90s and 1990s, one of our former coworkers or colleagues, and Jay Martin, who was a horticulture extension educator in Franklin County, and she told me that, oh, Gary, when you first started out, you were such a quiet and normal person, and but over the years, and learned to be very wordy. So this is why a lot of times I really couldn't, no matter how much time I'm given, it's hard for me to finish a presentation. So I normally list the useful references and toward the end, and so a few years back, and I decided, well, I'm going to mention useful references and toward the front, and so at least you will catch the catch the most important slide, and so otherwise I won't get to it. Okay, so the useful references, and I think many of you know about our extension bulletins. Bulletin 940 is Midwest Home Fruit Production Guide, and that's a fantastic bulletin that was developed by a group of folks at OSU. I was the editor and one of the co-authors. So it's really neat. And this bulletin, I believe we OSU Extension probably sold maybe, I think 6,000 copies, maybe something like that. Just a lot of copies have been sold, and I think we're at maybe our third printing, or third or fourth, maybe third. Anyway, so bulletin 940, and that's the bulletin to remember for master gardeners, or anybody. So extension bulletin 940, and when you talk to folks, you can talk to them for half an hour and sometimes hours on time. So this bulletin will be a great reference for folks. And so it's more for cultural management and insect and disease identification, planting techniques, and all that. And then the second bulletin is bulletin 780, controlling diseases and insects in home fruit plantings. So when people ask you, okay, I have these insects and diseases, and what do I do? And so the good news is we have this bulletin 780 as a reference. So there's also bad news, because controlling diseases and the insects can be pretty hard, because for home gardeners, just first of all, the choice is, do I want to use any pesticides? And most folks are not really willing to do that, and those that do want to use any pesticides, and then our selections are very slim, and so most gardeners will fall back to maybe just a combination home fruit sprays, but when you look at all the ingredients, and so the chemicals are in the ingredients are in these combination sprays are kind of very mediocre, and so folks can try really hard and spray religiously, and the results may not be as good as what they would like to have. And so, but anyway, we have this bulletin, and then for people who are much more serious about the managing diseases and insects, and there's a commercial version, and that's kind of overkill for most backyard gardeners and master gardener volunteers. So, but there is one copy online. It's called Midwest Fruit Pest Management Guide, and a free copy is located on the Purdue's website, because they were the Purdue is a lead organization or university that put it out. And then for people who wanted to learn about training, pruning apple trees and pear trees, and this book is more of a classic, classic kind of a reference. It came out, I think, back in the 80s, and when I was a poor graduate student, I probably spent 1/4 of my stipend on this book, and it was very, very expensive and very, very good. So it's I think I Googled on Amazon, and this book, and there are some copies available. And I believe one time I think I saw this book being was being listed for maybe $280. And anyways, so may or may not be worth it. But I also enjoy watching a lot of videos, and so I think YouTube videos are very, very helpful. So anyway, so these are the references, and there are many other books out there. So you can read those, and then the extension fact sheets and bulletins online, and also watch a lot of videos. And I always say with YouTube videos, it's just need to watch those, and it's you could learn something, or these videos will cure your insomnia. So just a little bit more advertisement, and our bulletin, and for a long time I thought, oh boy, that's kind of expensive, and for $30, but it's a very good reference for $30, and so it's well well worth the money. And I'm a very, very visual person, and so with this bulletin, and we have about 269 photos and / illustrations. My goal when we were working on this bulletin, my goal was to have at least one picture per page. So we had many, many pictures, and so 269 of them. Anyway, that's enough advertisement. So the tree fruit, and there are a lot of reasons, a lot of reasons that people grow tree fruits or tree fruit plants, and so it's well, the kind of I always tell people growing things, it's pretty much like playing playing golf, and a lot of people golf, and they're not very a lot of them are not very good at it, but they still enjoy playing the game of golf. And so growing things is just like golf, and you spend a lot of money, and you may not get very good at it, but the process is fun. The process is fun, but with golf, maybe the process can be kind of rough too. To me, it's a good source of frustration, since I'm just a kind of a hacker, and still learning about golf. Anyway, so the fruit plants, and boy, like peach trees and flowers are just absolutely gorgeous. And so you can plant a few peach trees in your backyard, and then if it's spring frost and zap the flowers, and then they still the peach trees with blooms can still look good for a few days. So they are very, very ornamental, and then if you happen to get a few tree ripe peaches, and get a few peaches of your own, boy, wouldn't that be fantastic? And then another see one see the in Q&A there was one question. Okay, so another neat thing about the fruit trees is you can plant them as part of your landscape. I showed pictures of peach trees, apple trees, and when you train them in this little row, it's called espalier, It's a French term. So just short rows and kind of trellised. And this picture was taken from our Art Singer garden at the Farm Science Review. And I'm sad to tell folks that those trees are not there anymore. To my big shock. Anyways, so the trees, trees look really interesting, and see these trees are dwarf trees, and they're not that tall, and they look pretty neat, and they do add quite a bit to the landscape, and it's definitely a very good stress reliever for a lot of folks, and to watch things bloom and also watch fruits develop. And then apple blossoms are very neat and very some most of them are kind of pinkish, and when they are fully open, they are white. So very ornamental. So I would say enjoy their flowers, and then enjoy the tree leaves and branches and small trees as part of your landscape, and also when you can grow decent quality fruits, and then you'd be proud as a peacock. Yeah, proud as a peacock. One of my extension colleagues, and he was a Sea Grant agent. I believe he retired maybe 8 years ago, maybe longer than 8 years ago. But anyway, so his main hobby was just growing apple trees, and he had 27 trees, and he pruned and sprayed and religiously, and then he would apple trees, and then at the end of the season he would just give the apples away. So that's what he did for fun, and he might still be doing that in his retirement. So when you are thinking about fruit production, we always say, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that, and just sounds like we're kind of whining, and so when you look at a beautiful orchard loaded with fruit, high quality fruits, it really these things do not just happen by accident. It's a lot of work. A lot of work go into it. So commercial growers, and I'm sure many of you have gone to pick your own orchards and all that. And when you look at those, so the farmers spend a lot of sleepless nights worrying about many things, like frost. Frost is one of them, and then very cold winter temperatures. And we had a very cold spell around Christmas last year, and a lot of the flower buds were killed. And so people may or may not know. And then we also had a pretty bad frost in April. So that kind of hurt our fruit crop quite a bit. And then then we're aware of insects and diseases, and so that's always tough to deal with. And then probably another thing is hail. Hail can hurt the crop quite a bit. So where do you start? And it's always good to have have sufficient space, and folks will always well, it's nice to have a lot of space and for the trees to grow. Whether you pick dwarf trees or semi-dwarf trees, especially semi-dwarf trees, they can get pretty big. But if you have dwarf trees, and then we know they get to about 8 to 10, maybe 10 foot or so, give and take 2 feet on both sides. So 8 to 12 feet tall. So you need some space, and then some people will grow apple trees in containers or fruit trees in containers. Yeah, with dwarf trees And then if you have a large enough container, that's still doable. So enough space, and then always, when I teach this session, and I always tell folks, there are people who do not have space for more than one tree, and so our recommendation is to purchase trees that are grafted onto a dwarf rootstock, and also you can graft multiple varieties onto the same tree. So that's always fun, like 3-in-1, 4-in-1, 5-in-1. And if you're good at grafting, and then you could probably do like maybe 25 different varieties on the same tree too. So they need well-drained soil. So that's a must. Abundant sunlight and 6 to 8 hours of sun per day. And then disease-resistant cultivars. And so the most folks go like, oh, when they see a certain variety at the grocery store, and they automatically go like, okay, I should be growing those, without really knowing that some of those can be pretty tough. So for home gardeners, and I would say, I would absolutely not plant any varieties that do not have disease resistance. It's just too hard to spray for diseases. Plus, most folks don't really have these large, what's called air blast sprayers for proper fungicide coverage, for effective disease control. Okay, so disease-resistant varieties, and then compatible dwarfing rootstock. Make sure you have apple trees or fruit trees grafted onto a dwarf rootstock. And otherwise, just imagine if a tree gets to be 35 feet tall, and just get on a tree like this, and then prune them. Boy, that could be pretty dangerous. And then you also need 2 cultivars for cross-pollination. And I always say 2 compatible cultivars for cross-pollination, because not all varieties are compatible. And then annual pruning. So when is the best time to prune apple trees or peach trees? Apple trees, I always joke with people. It depends on how many trees that you have, and if you have 50,000 apple trees, I would like start now, because you may or may not get done. It's not ideal, but it's going to take you a month to finish pruning. But if you just have two apple trees, I would do that in March, maybe March 1st. And then regular sprays, and depending on how serious you are, and if you're really serious, and boy, that'd be like every 7 to 10 days. And then a backpack sprayer may or may not do the job. And so for most gardeners, you just do the best you can. Yeah, I think I answered some of the questions. Okay. So good soil, wild drained soil, and so I will list a few varieties. These are not necessarily the ones that I would recommend, but just to show people that what the common ones are. And you have Macintosh, Jonathan, Red Delicious, and Melrose, because I graduated from Ohio State and also work for Ohio State. Melrose, and that's one variety that was developed from the Ohio State University. So by Dr. I believe Dr. Howlett. But anyway, Howlett. So a lot of apples that I really like, and Golden Delicious, and happens to be one of my favorites. Fuji, is a close second, and I also like like Honey Crisp, and so the new varieties like Ever Crisp and Ludacrisp, and many new ones have come out. So for pies, and I love pies, but not very good at making them. So these are some of the varieties. And so since I mentioned Honey Crisp, and so the folks go like, oh, should I should I grow Honey Crisp? I can tell you this: all the growers and hated growing Honey Crisp, and not because the fruits taste bad, because they're very hard to grow. So if you insist on growing them and just love the challenge, you could give it a shot. But I personally, I wouldn't grow Honeycrisp because it's too hard. And so one variety that I like quite a bit is for growing in the backyard is Pixie Crunch. It's a smaller apple, but it's highly disease resistant, and the fruit is quite crunchy. So I would grow Pixie Crunch over Honeycrisp in any day. So it's I will leave the Honeycrisp growing to other folks. So just just a lot of okay, okay, when you talk about spraying, what kind of spraying it is, with what and against what it's possible not to spray. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I will answer the question about the spraying. So what kind of sprays, and typically home gardeners can get combination fruit sprays when you go to garden centers and box stores. And so, for example, Ortho has spectricide. Different companies have their own version of a home fruit spray. Bayer, they all have the home fruit sprays, or sometimes they're called fruit and vegetable sprays, because they could be labeled for both. And so these are combination insecticides and the fungicides. Sometimes you may get separate fungicides and insecticide. So hopefully that will answer the first part of your question. The second part is, can I grow them organically? With the apple trees, and you could, but you kind of have to lower your expectations. Because you will get insects and diseases. So the insects, and so when you harvest fruits, and you could just cut out the parts that are not good and use the rest. And hopefully I'll have a couple of slides to show you how to do that. But it's but in terms of organic production, that would be pretty hard, because we all know how rainy Ohio gets in April, May, sometimes even June. And then well, this year summer was kind of wet too. That's kind of a let's see, summer was kind of quite rainy, but the fall was kind of dry. Anyways, so select disease resistant varieties, at least you will have fewer problems to worry about. So these are some of the varieties that I would recommend. So quite a few. So when you look at this, and like red free, so free probably means free of apple scab, and Jana free, just easier for me to remember, and freedom, liberty, those are all good. And I did not have a Pixie Crunch. Pixie Crunch listed on my on my slide, but the Pixie Crunch is one of those that I will definitely add to the list. So once you decide, okay, these are the varieties that you will plant, and you will think about selecting, and then you could call the nursery to say, oh, okay, which ones will pollinate this, and you can get them in pairs, and hopefully these this red free and John free will just pollinate each other. So that's always a possibility. So you could call the mail order nursery, or you could do a Google search and just it's called pollination chart. So you can line them up, like find out which varieties will pollinate which. Okay, yeah, the first question, planted in a sunny spot, so that's always good. And the mixed, let's see. Yeah, when you have clay soil, have compost and cow manure, garden soil, and you even use this root stimulator. That's always yeah, that's always nice. That's always good. Uh, so okay, I have just one type of apple tree. So you one yeah, if you know the variety, if you know the variety that you had purchased, and you could just you could just call the nursery, like, hey, which one will which ones will be a good pollinizer, for my little lonely apple tree. Yeah. Oh, okay. So ordered, planted, the 4-in-1 when you made, it died. Uh, yeah. Sometimes you just yes. Sometimes you just get bad plants. It's highly possible that just imagine these things are shipped a long distance, and they're while they're still alive, and that's hard. That's very hard to uh, hard to do, shipping wise. So sometimes it might be better. Well, at the local garden centers, these 4-in-1s, 3-in-1s, 4-in-1s. I think I've seen some at garden centers in Columbus, Central Ohio. Anyways, okay. So are there practices? And this one from Sue, to help fruit trees survive, maintain their health, and throughout the winter, and during during the winter. Let's see. Yeah, during the winter month. Yeah, during the winter months. During the winter months. During the winter months, I need to get the Q&A box out of my view. But during the winter months, probably the main thing, a few things to worry about. Deer, boy, they can hurt you really bad. Yeah, so I would say a nice fence around the tree or trees would be really nice. And so that would be one. I would definitely erect some kind of fence around my apple trees, because just imagine a deer will rub its antlers, and then kill the bark, and then they also will eat the stems, and sometimes they just pull the tree out of out of the soil, and then it can be very disheartening. So and then rodents, like voles, if there is snow, and then voles will kind of eat around, get underneath the snow, and then they will eat the tree bark, and then and before you knew it, and the tree is dead. Okay, so that's always a toughie. So just uh, so the rodent guards and rabbit guards, and there are these cylinders, and you could put around the base of the tree trunk. So you could do that during the winter month. But that's a very good question, Sue. Rootstocks, and so I already touched upon the rootstock, and then so just remember that when a dwarf tree can still be pretty tall. So depending on how dwarf it is, so the true dwarf rootstocks, the trees get to be about 8 to 10 foot tall. And so I'm not sure if you order them from nurseries, and you can ask them. Mail order nurseries, you can ask them, hey, is this grafted on M9 or butt 9 or whatever? So M9, butt 9 is both of them are truly dwarf, but sometimes M26 could be called dwarf, even though it's semi-dwarf. So semi-dwarf can get to be about 20 feet tall. So that, to me, that's still pretty tall. That's still pretty tall. So I would only grow dwarf trees myself, because I would rather not get on a tall ladder to prune my apple trees. That could be a pretty dangerous deal. So smaller trees are much easier to manage. Okay. Yeah, the standard trees and 30, 40 feet tall, and I'm always envious of people always envious of people who get to travel to Kazakhstan, in Central Asia, and one of my colleagues, Dr. Rafiq Islam, he's actually there right now. So there are actually a native apple forests in Kazakhstan, and he took several pictures, and I would always love. That's on my bucket list. Anyway, so standard size trees are just way too tall, and it's not really good for homeowners to home gardeners to plant. Okay, and so graft union, and during the regular master gardener training, I would always joke with people. I bought one tree that's supposed to be 10 foot tall. Now it's like 35 feet tall. What happened? So make sure the graft union is planted 2 to 3 inches above the soil line. So that's always good. And so a little bit pest management. I would say probably the key thing is to have realistic expectations, because it's very hard to grow the textbook and kind of high quality fruits, and at least high quality fruits in terms of looks, like what you're getting in grocery stores or at the farm markets. And so just a few diseases, and apple scab, and you have these spots. So apple scabs, most of us should be pretty familiar with it on the fruit, and it looks like this, and big scabs on the fruits. That's the bad news. The good news is you can actually just cut it off, and it doesn't really hurt the taste that much. But it does hurt the leaves, and if you have unhealthy leaves, and fruit quality may not be as high. So that's always a toughie. So make sure you select the let's see. Make sure you select the varieties that are resistant to diseases. So do you only graft to the rootstock, or can you graft onto the sign above the graft as well? Let's see. Do you only graft the rootstock? Can you graft onto the sign? Okay. Now I got it. Yeah, Mary has a very good question. So grafting wise, so if you want to do the 3-in-1, 5-in-1, or 25-in-1, and so you could you could just graft the new varieties onto the scion as well. So you could do both, graft onto the rootstock, and there are actually rootstocks, and you have bottom is called rootstock, and then the middle is called interstem. So some growers will use an interstem, and so but gardeners and once you get the tree, and you can grab many different varieties onto the scion above. So yes, you can do that. It is fun. It is fun to do, and it's an ancient art, kind of well, not very ancient. Well, it's a nice art that's kind of being lost. So grafting, I always say you need a very sharp knife and a lot of band-aids. Very, very dangerous, but it is fun. I mean, just talking about uh, talking about the sense of achievement when you can actually get them to take, and then having different varieties. Anyways, apple scab, a very common disease, and so if you have crab apples in the landscape, and that apple scab is the one disease that will knock about 80% of the leaves off apple scab susceptible varieties, and to make them look awful. Sometimes it could be 100% defoliation. So scab management, get the resistant varieties, and also spray a lot of sprays. So using fungicides, and then the next one is apples. The fire blight. So master gardeners and home gardeners, we need to know that fire blight is caused by a bacteria. Bacteria. So if you apply fungicides to control apple, the control fire blight of an apple, it's a total waste of time, because fungicides do not do anything to bacteria. So we all know, when we have a bacteria infection, we take antibiotics. So that would be amoxicillin and all that. And so the same deal applies applies to fire blight. Okay, so that's remember. And fire blight, boy, when you get it, it's awful. It's awful. It just looked like somebody torched an apple tree with fire. Okay, torched the apple tree with fire. Okay, so and then growers will apply let's see, this antibiotics during bloom. If it's during the bloom, it's whether it's really really warm, and then that's when plants are susceptible. And just a few things, the sooty blotch and fly speck, and this one, these two, sooty blotch will make the apples look like this, and then the fly speck, and they do look like those kind of droppings from flies. And even though they look really ugly, I mean, this looks atrocious. But anyways, so but you can wash them off. So that's kind of if there is any silver lining on sooty blotch and fly speck, and you could just wash them off. Okay, using fungicides, and very very important, but very hard to do. Very hard to do. And so a few insects, apple maggots, and that's where the wormy apples come from. And so you could use red sticky traps, sticky apples, so there are these red apples that has lots of glue glue on the exterior, so the apple maggot flies will just fly to it and then they get stuck. That's the good news. The bad news is that red thing could be stuck to you too. It's very, very sticky. So pick up drop fruits, and also you can make sprays and from late June to August, and also pick up the fruits from tree to ground. So that's that's apple maggot, and then codling moth, and this is a very nice picture from USDA, and just very, very, and so lots and lots of sprays, and I guess some organic farmers will use cardboard strips. You would wrap the tree trunks around, wrap the tree trunks with these cardboard strips, and then the codling moth will just kind of crawl into those, and then you could pick them off and burn them. So and then birds, I don't know. Birds don't really read textbooks, and so they may or may not do anything. Plum curculio, and so this half moon shaped little brown spot on the fruits, and that's the telltale sign for plum curculios. And the insects, and the insect itself looks really interesting. I guess entomologists might say that they look lovely, but for horticulturists, interesting is about as far as I go. They should be eliminated, and otherwise they can hurt the fruits. So the one question was about controlling them through organic means, and so after you selected disease-resistant varieties, so most of the time we're talking about scab, and sometimes there might be some resistance to fire blight. So make sure you if you can get both, and then that would be fantastic. So the next thing is, well, I really don't want to spray at all. Why would I want to use any insecticides and any fungicides? So if you have resistant varieties, and maybe you could skip fungicides altogether, and then if you do the fruit bagging, maybe you could skip insecticides. Well, insects will still hurt the leaves, depending on how severe the infestation is. Sometimes Japanese beetles can hurt you really bad. But anyway, so you can bag fruits, and so people are like, well, I don't know, that sounds kind of ridiculous. So my answer to that is, well, you don't have to bag all, maybe all 50 or 150 of them. Maybe you could just bag like maybe 20, 30, the ones you could reach. You could use these paper, I call them the Japanese apple bags. They're very expensive, so I don't know if I want to spend 50 cents a piece on those. So I would say if it's like maybe 3-5 cents each, and I might do that. But this is very effective, but they are too expensive, and there are other options. So my colleague from University of Minnesota, and they did a study, and they actually used the Ziploc bags. So you could just slide the Ziploc bags into to enclose the fruits, and staple them on both ends, and also cut the corners off, and so the moisture can drain. And so he actually did a taste test, and the people who participated in the taste testing did not see any notice any difference between these bagged apples and the ones that were not. So I don't know. The good news is they are effective. The bad news is actually I question how good these tasters were. I would imagine there is a difference in taste, but they did not find any. So I would like to try this myself. So these bags are uh, kind of expensive, but there are cheaper versions. And this is a picture of a bunch of nylon type stockings, and also there are nylon footies, and that you can purchase from online or from shoe stores if they sell them to you at all. I believe you can get them online. And speaking of online, and boy, there are many different versions, and some are more and more affordable. Or you could just make some yourself if you're the Martha Stewart type, and then just get yourself a sewing machine, and then get some materials, and that would kind of keep the insects out, and cheesecloth, and just all those things. You can do a pretty good job yourself. So there are these online that are relatively inexpensive. Oh, yeah, Mary Ellen has a very good question. Can apple bagging help deter squirrels? Oh boy, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, these squirrels and squirrels. Another one that could be even worse. Even worse the raccoon, and they love fruits as well, and they can climb pretty good as well. So squirrels, yeah, I would say we may have to do a little test, and where I live, we have a very healthy population. Even on the uh, well on the Waterman farm in Columbus, I'm not sure I saw a lot of squirrels and feeding on apples, but they have a much bigger planting, so maybe the squirrels on the OSU campus they would rather eat acorns versus uh, acorns versus uh, just checking my time, acorns versus apples. So I'm not sure. I think squirrels might be able to chew through these bags, but we'll see. So not 100% sure. Just talk very briefly about pruning, and just it should be done in March, and it should be done in March, and this is an apple tree that has been pruned every year, and this is before pruning in March. And so a lot of us, when we prune apple trees, even myself included, I tend to be on the soft side. So when an apple tree has been properly pruned, and you go like, oh my God, what is this? This looks awful. But this is what commercial apple growers do. And so when I look at this tree after pruning, and you want that pyramidal shape, but I'm still shocked myself, like, where are the apples? But the fruit grower assures me that he can get about 2 to 3 bushels of apple per tree. And the good old saying goes, after an apple tree has been properly pruned, you should be able to throw a hat through the tree without hitting any branches. So this particular one, you can do that. And then the one common question is, and I have a tree that has been apple tree that has never been pruned, and what do I do? I would say do everything in stages, maybe in 3 years, and remove 3 large limbs per year, and do that in 3 years. There's no guarantee you will bring it back, but that's the practice. Okay, the apple trees, and they grow fruits on the little spurs, and so these spurs, so these ones are the ones that you keep, and you make sure you use the high quality pruners, and so you also do a little bit of fruit thinning, and so you can get what 5 or 6 fruits per cluster, and then if you do the thinning by hand, you would remove these smaller ones and let the fruit in the middle develop, so you will get the best quality fruits, because nobody likes the smaller little small apples. And then make a very nice pruning cut, and make sure you have that little when you cut it, don't cut it too deeply, leave a little bit, and so the branches can heal properly. So don't do what this person did and turn the tree into like a bunch of water sprouts. And so apple pruning, it is an art, and so you do chop off a lot. Do chop off a lot, and so I'm just going through this and very quickly, and I see that my time is fast approaching. So 1 o'clock. So the central leader training system is what you're aiming for, and the growers do use a lot of cloth pins to keep the branches kind of horizontal. Luckily, they are very inexpensive, $2-3 for a big bag of them.
Hey, Gary, since you've answered a lot of the questions as you've gone along here, you can go until 10 after if you'd like to.
Okay.
If you want to finish this up.
Okay. Thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
So just very quickly, and very quickly. So pruning, and people do use a lot. Growers do use a lot of spreaders. So instead of doing a lot of chopping a lot of branches off, you would just spread them to about 60 to 80 degrees, so that you would slow down the growth, and then you slow down the growth. Just excuse me. Slow down the growth and also open up the tree, so for much better light reception, light penetration. So these are the little spurs, and that I was talking about, and this is where the fruits will come from. So you can tell. And then the slender spindle is a specialized system, and so some growers will do this, and for home gardeners, it's a little bit more difficult to manage or to practice. So the key thing is when you plant your younger apple trees, you want to bend the limbs so to about 60 to 80 degrees, and so they would develop flowers sooner, and they will also produce fruits sooner. And so when that happens, and then the fruit load will slow down the growth. So that's always nice, because you're not in the you're not just growing stems for fun, because you kind of like to get some apples at the end of the season. I think I showed this picture. Yeah, this is a picture from Akron. Is it Mansfield or Akron? I think it's Mansfield. Kingwood Center. I just love this little espalier tree, and it's a lot of work to make the tree look this nice. But when it happens, boy, it's just a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling. So I will talk about peaches very briefly. if you have any questions, you're welcome to plug them into the chat, and I'll try to answer them. But I will stop at 110 regardless. So peaches, and boy, they are just nothing beats tree ripe peaches. When I was a graduate student at OERDC, many years ago, and we had a few peach trees over there, and during the summer month, it's just so neat to pick a few and eat them right off the trees, and just remember those good old days. Good old days. They were kind of hard, but okay. Sue, let's see. My email address. It's just my last name, GAO. It's .2@osu.edu. Okay, so GAO.2@osu.edu. So Mary, is it better to prune for a single leader or to prune more vase shaped? And so for peach trees, for apple trees, a central leader, just one central leader with scaffold limbs. Peach trees, it's an open vase system, because the peach trees love sunlight, and they need lots of sunlight. So the tree will be like a big vase, and so it's kind of shocking that when you get a tree, and maybe this maybe like 3-4 feet tall and 5 feet tall, the first thing you do is you just whack it about 28 inches above the soil line, and or some people would just use their knee to measure the height, and that kind of depends on whether how tall you are, and that can vary. So anyway, so you remove it, and then you force the tree to grow into a vase. So very good question. Let's see, is it better to prune single? Okay, airflow. When to prune peach trees, and this is a very good question as well. So peaches, and if I would always prune peach, if I have a lot of peach trees, I would prune it last. So some growers actually will wait as late as the trees are in bloom, because by doing so, you know how many flowers that you are going to have. Well, you know how many you actually have. So I would say just even wait until when they bloom, and then you would do your pruning, and you will accidentally knock off a few, but it's really not that big of a deal. I would say March, even late March, early April, when they bloom, depending on where you are when they bloom. So if you just have one tree or two, I would wait until they bloom, and then you do your pruning, and our goal is to separate the fruits by about 6 to 8 inches. So hopefully the bees will do the job, and then you will get everything pollinated. Okay, very good, very good question. Okay, so let me try not to make a big liar out of me. So I'm going to stop at 1:10. So I have 4 minutes. So peach growing, and last year was a pretty rough. But last December was awful to our peach trees in Ohio around Christmas time, and there was a hard freeze. A lot of flower buds were killed. And then on top of that we had a spring frost. So, and then this is another picture from the Farm Science Review, genetically dwarf peach and the nectarines, and it's always nice to have some dwarf ones. so you wouldn't have to get on a tall ladder. And you do prune them really hard. You do annual pruning and sprays. So so one thing, master gardeners, and peach leaf curl, that's one disease, and that's very relatively easy to control. So make one fungicide and after the leaves fall off and before the new leaves emerge next year. So you could maybe from November to about maybe March-ish, and so I would say late fall might be the best time for that. And so brown rot is a very tough fungal disease. And then you have a couple of borers, and one is called peach borer, and other one is called lesser peach borer. Peach borer will bore into the base of the tree trunk, so some folks will just use wire to jab into the holes and to kill the worms. And the lesser peach borer will just attack the limbs, the scaffold limbs. So the peach trees, and this is what what the peach tree looks like. See where the growers and cut them this much above the ground, and then you have three or four limbs going 3 or 4 different directions. So this is what a well pruned peach tree looks like, and and it will still have a lot of peaches. It will still have a lot of peach trees. Okay, summary. Select a good site and make sure you select disease-resistant varieties. And use store fruit stock whenever possible, available, and spray on a regular basis and prune them annually, and protect the plants, and fruits from nuisance wildlife. And then the take-home message is, well, just enjoy the process, because it can be difficult, but it's also fun.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. Appreciate your answering some of the questions. I did have one person's hand up, so we'll get to her to see if she has a question. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. We have 6 real quick questions, so you're all familiar with this if you've been here before. So if you would please answer that. Patricia Sharp, you had your hand up. If you have a question, would you please put that in the question and answer box? If not, if anybody else has questions, let us know. Gary, do you grow fruit trees at your house?
Well, that's a very good question. So I do not, because we already have a lot of them at the research center. So when I come home, what I do for fun is totally different than what I do for the job.
So you don't have to. How nice is that, right? Nice.
That's correct.
So if I am a new grower, like I want to grow some trees next year for my grandkids so they can, enjoy learning how to do that. How many trees would you suggest just to get started to do a small mini orchard?
I would probably, well, let's see. Depending on what they like to eat. So you could ask them like, hey, do you like apples, or do you like peaches, or do you like what else, pawpaws or pears or whatever. And I would probably start with one apple tree, and then maybe graft many different varieties and onto that one tree.
Okay.
And then if you and the grandkids and like it, then you go like, okay, well, let's plant more.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can always chop it down.
Yep. And then when I retire, I can plant a bunch of them, right?
Yeah. The 27 will keep you very busy.
We do have a good question here, and I think this is a great question because
Okay.
there is a point. At what point do you give up and cut down a plum tree with black knot?
Oh boy, maybe like third year.
Yeah, I mean, most
when
people, we try to save them as long as we can, but there does come a time, right?
Yeah, I would say plum trees, but surprisingly, even my neighbor across the street, and they don't do anything to their plums, and they, just that particular variety, and he doesn't know what variety that is. Just once in a while, will produce a few nice plums, and absolutely does nothing to it, and
Yeah.
no black knot fungus, nothing. Yeah, very strange.
So
So
maybe when you can't tolerate it anymore, you're done with it.
So I would say, yeah, black knot. Yeah, when it gets it, it just gets worse and worse
Yeah,
because fungal spores will build up a strong, heavy population, and
sure,
you're pretty much just fighting a losing battle.
sure. All right, great presentation, Gary. Really appreciate it. Glad I got a chance to sit in on one of these lunch and learns. I haven't done them in a while. So
uh,
hopefully I didn't do too bad. And I'll do Jen proud. We will see you then next week for fall foliage and why plants turn colors and how it all works. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today, Gary. Take care.
all right. Hey, thanks, Pam. And good to
Bye-bye,
see you all.
everybody.
Okay, bye.